What's going on, everybody? It is Anthony from #BetheChange. Truth will set you free. Of course, Great American Syndicate. This is all part of and blunt force discussion. Welcome to Truth Tuesday on a Monday. I know. Well, we got things going on, so we just shifted. It's the same thing. It's just the day before. What a world, guys. We've got our guest coming up. Not our host coming up in just a second. But I like to give a little start with just an analyzation real quick on what is going on in this absolutely crazy world. As we look back at the beginning of this massive shift in our country, we call the pandemic, or some of us may call the plandemic, and remember how badly we were manipulated as people since day one. We are the freest country in the world, yet we are not immune to this. So then the question begs itself, why? I still don't have an answer, and I don't know who ultimately the beneficiary is, but we do know that Big Pharma has exploded. They have sold juice to humans with little testing and maximum profits without ever having to worry about that whole pesky, rigorous testing process. Even better, they are able to sell them without the need for the consumer to have to pay them directly. Instead, it was subsidized and forced. I personally would love to be able to find a business that I can run like that. Now, we finally have people like the Florida Surgeon General releasing information to show that this is absolutely a failure based on anyone that can do basic research. Florida is the first state to recommend against 18 to 39-year-old males to take this poison. I mean, forced, safe, and effective treatment. You mix that in with the complete overinflation of what transpired on January 6th and a never-ending barrage to paint a complete false picture over half of this country for the sake of changing people's vote with the sacrifice of decency between human beings is growing tiresome. With that now, mistrust over everything, including banking institutions, PayPal, and we'll get to that later, of course. This is Columbus Day, which in years past, even I've grown leery and almost gave in to the Indigenous Peoples Day thoughts, because I've been fed so much revisionist history to think that the Native American people were completely innocent before Western culture came in is ridiculous. We are so easily manipulated, me included, to give empathy to those and become an apologist for a country, aka America, that of course has had some flaws, but still far better than the decency that other countries in the world provide. But remember, this needs a little bit of an open mind and basic logic. Let's go ahead and get started with Truth Will Set You Free. Bring it up, our hosts. We've got Dave Brown, Barb Allen, and Casey Rasmussen. What's going on, guys?
What's up?
Greetings.
I see we're a little light right now, so I'm going to ask everybody to hit the share button, hit the like button, all those good things to get us popping on all the networks, from BetheChange to Great American Syndicate to Truth Will Set You Free. This is a 1-hour program. We'll be out of here at that hour mark, or hour 3, or whenever Barb says, guys, get the hell off the screen. So do us a favor, hit the share button. Let's get started. Casey, what's going on in your world?
Not much. Politics is weird right now. If you notice, we're not really talking about local elections, and we're less than 4 weeks away. And you have a candidate that's running for governor in New York that had a shooting, and very few people are even wanting to talk about it. And his children were feet from it. So I'm sure we'll have a touch onto that topic here in a little bit.
You're talking about Eric Adams?
No, Lee Zeldin.
Oh, Lisa. Oh, gotcha. Okay, I didn't even know about that. So, we got somebody from Vegas. What's going on, Barb? How's your day?
The day was busy and good. We had some interviews today for our show. One was unfortunately last minute rescheduled to next week, but then we had a great one. I can't wait to share it with you. Wiley McGraw, you guys are going to love him. He is a combat veteran who was also a semi-pro baseball player and then a bull rider as well. And he's just got this diverse background, and now he does all this cool shit with his experiences and insights. So it was good. I learned a lot today. I'm feeling very knowledgeable and very today right now.
Proof that no matter how old you are, you can still learn new things.
It is proof that I can still learn at this ripe old age I am.
Dave Brown, what's going on?
Busy day, right, Barb? We had a team meeting with Anthony earlier today, which is cool, to talk about the Great American Syndicate and our welcome box and our lifetime membership that we're offering to 100 people. So stay tuned for that. Excited to have blunt force discussion and Truth Set You Free as part of the Great American Syndicate. And we have Barb's podcast as well, which is Flex Your Freedom. which you didn't mention. So if you aren't subscribed to any of those shows, you can find them wherever you find your podcast shows. Other than that, I'm just living the dream.
Which reminds me, thanks for doing that. I need to put the whole thing on the bottom loop, throw that up there. I'll go ahead and start with, what are we doing first? Let's go ahead and throw up the Join American Syndicate because we just talked about it. So if you guys, again, this is over the next few months, things are going to start to all marry into Great American Syndicate. So become a member of that over there. Is there a free option, or is it strictly just the $4.99 a month, Dave?
Yeah, $4.99 is the stripped down version.
Just basically free.
Yeah, basically free.
And if you guys are Patreons and of course we'll still provide anything to the Patreons that we do with Great American Syndicate. But if you're Patreons of Blunt Force Discussion or specifically Truth Will Set You Free, and you become a Great American Syndicate member, you'll still get all the same stuff. Yeah. So if you want to behoove yourself to switch over, please do that. I won't have my feelings hurt for that.
Yeah. So what's cool about the membership, right? Like all of us are part of Facebook groups, right? But I think Facebook groups, stake for the most part. So what we wanted to do is have our own private social networking community of like-minded patriots, right? So that's kind of like the foundation of the membership, is you get access to our back office, where it's almost like a social networking platform for, our community and the family that we're building. So it's pretty cool. You can share posts and stories and images and cool things like that, like everything that you can do on Facebook, but it's private, right? It's just for our community. It's not tied to Facebook or anything else. It's ours.
Absolutely. And for those of you that missed any Blunt Force Discussion, we had Tony Watley on last week, and it was a great episode. Actually, it was Kelly's favorite because it was more of a business entrepreneurship show. So I encourage you guys to check that out. Just go to youtube.com/C/Blunt Force Discussion, or just search Blunt Force Discussion. Great episode. Please subscribe. There's also an unlisted video on there for those of you that are on the email list of Cash and I talking last week that was recorded. So again, make sure you're on the mailing list. Simple to do that for now. It'll probably shift in the next couple of months. But for now, just go to #BetheChange.com, spell out hashtag, and enter your information. My little update, and if there's anybody that's in the Miami area that watches this in 24 hours, sweet mother F. Since we were on the phone earlier today, guys, I've still continued to talk to different people, and nobody can seemingly help me out. My cell phone, my backup phone, because I had two as I was transitioning, is currently at a gate in Miami. It's a gate E9. I've been following it. My phone managed to take more of a vacation than I ever have, because I left it in the seat back pocket on a 5 a.m. plane on the way to Chicago, and now it's all over the world. But it did make a final stop because we now found out how often American Airlines actually cleans the seat back pockets. It took several flights, but it now is in Miami. So if anybody's flying out of Miami in the next few days, please go to gate E9 and find a way to message me and get my damn phone back, because that's where it's been sitting. That's where it's sitting. And you can call American, you can call the airport. Nobody can somehow communicate with the gate. It is 2022. Sake. Anyways, that's the end of my rant. Yes, and as Nikki says, please share this out. Here's our topics for today. We're going to talk about, since it is Columbus Day, we're going to talk about Columbus Day. Michael Fanone, or Fanone, or Phony Baloney. We're going to talk about him. He just came out with a book. He is the Capitol tattooed police officer. We're going to talk PayPal, briefly about Kanye getting banned right now off of everywhere because of his anti-Semitic remarks. Let's see, Florida Surgeon General, my new hero, and then Eric Adams. We're going to start, though, Eric Adams, mayor of New York. And part of that New York conversation, let's talk about who you guys brought up earlier. Let's start. It's Columbus Day. Let's start with that. So I made last year, I remember Kevin schooled me on why this whole hate against Columbus is a little bit of revisionist history. Because for a period of time, I was like, you know what? I'm an Italian and I'm still okay with switching this to Indigenous Day. And then I started to hear why this is just a dumb idea and the typical revisionist bullshit. And it made a little bit more sense. Who would like to start talking about why Columbus Day should stay or not be Columbus Day?
I would like to hear your clarification on why it's revisionist history.
So the revisionist history, meaning why we have made it Indigenous Day, is more revision.
I understand what revised means.
Well, I meant, okay. I didn't know if you knew what direction. I didn't know which way you thought I was going. So essentially, we deemed Columbus. I don't think he found America. I know he found,
He didn't.
yeah, he found a different part, but it started, he brought Western culture to the, or European culture to this area. And in the end, when they talk about slaughtering and killing, it's no different than what was already happening and enslaving in the indigenous tribes, that when he met with them, they were already enslaving other indigenous tribes. Turns out none of them were very peaceful people. And actually the savagery that they performed on each other was even worse than what Columbus did when he was trying to merge groups. So that is the revisionist history that we ended up getting taught, was that he was this horrific person that completely changed the landscape of those parts of the Americas and killed off way more people than was already being killed off, and then brought them rape and pillaging, again, stuff that was already happening. But anyways, that's what I meant. That's my clarification.
All right. Fascinating. I did a little digging into Columbus Day because, it's been a while since I was in the 5th grade. So I had to kind of refresh the old noggin there. And it was actually pretty interesting in that the first National Columbus Day was in 1892, President Benjamin Harrison. And he said it was to celebrate the 400th anniversary of Columbus, quote, discovering America. But what it looks like more is that it was pandering to the Italian American community for their votes, because the year before, Italy had pulled this ambassador out of our country, and we had pulled our ambassador out of theirs. We were on the brink of some sort of friction, serious friction with Italy, because in New Orleans, 11 Italian immigrants had been killed, some shot, some lynched, after a trial where they were accused of killing somebody else and then acquitted, I guess. And the mob came in and killed these 11 Italian immigrants in various methods of execution. And so Italy was pissed that nobody was ever arrested for those murders. And the sitting president wanted to kind of he didn't want to lose the Italian American vote. So he wanted to restore some kind of diplomacy and peace with Italy. So he said, okay, well, we're going to create this Columbus Day and celebrate Italian Americans. And so it looks like there was a wee bit of politics involved in creating the original Columbus Day, but then it wasn't officially like a actual annual thing. What was it until FDR signed it into federal, a federal thing. So that's kind of interesting, little tidbit of history.
Yeah.
So I got to fire back at you, that's good information. But does that change? So that's how all major days kind of get signed into place. So
yeah.
Does that make it as though it's not valid in your mind?
Well, it is a little silly. Columbus didn't discover America. I don't know how that became a thing, like Santa Claus, he didn't discover America. So why, but that's what I was taught in school. Oh, Columbus discovered America. And so I don't know why is that a thing? Why is this even such a big thing at all? We have other things to worry about.
Agreed. Anybody else?
Well, the big thing with Columbus, so Columbus didn't discover America. He discovered pretty much our continent for our people from where he was coming from to here. That is it. Now, the thing with Columbus Day, the reason why I always promote Happy Columbus Day every year is it's to keep history there. What we are doing over the last 5-10 years, we keep removing history. Every little bit. We remove a statue here. We do this or that. In 2020, we did that more than we have ever done in history by removing history. And so we already have a Native American month and all of the other days. Why not celebrate a day that people came over and started to come into this continent, which then developed into many other countries being founded at that time? There is nothing wrong with doing that. Now, Christopher Columbus does have some sketchy history, absolutely, but we don't know what was going on, what was normal back then, other than what people are writing now to get attention. So you got to take that with a grain of salt. Now, that is where I come back and I always celebrate Columbus Day, because it would just be somebody else. It would have been the next person that came to the land if it wasn't him. So what's the big deal?
Valid. Dave?
So yeah, I'm in Casey's corner here. Like I just don't like rewriting history, and I don't like rewriting anything. So or replacing it with something else. So Columbus Day is Columbus Day. You want to have an Indigenous Peoples Day, then pick another freaking day and make it. Don't I mean, how insulting is it to take Columbus Day, something that's been celebrated and then just kind of like, oh, let's change it for these people to to be nice to them and help them out and to show them their history and remember their history. Just pick a different day that's just for Indigenous people. It's like making like, hey, let's make a gay Superman. No, Superman is not gay.
It's nothing like
No,
that.
it is. No, it is the same thing, right?
Connection.
You want to have a gay superhero, and then you write a gay superhero story, right? Same thing. Like, you can't take Superman and make him something that is not. Like, we have a holiday that's Columbus Day. If you want a holiday for Indigenous people, you create one, right? You can't just swap things out like that. It doesn't work that way. That's at least not for me.
I think ultimately, to me, it's for a while, it's like, fine, just give it to him. I'm just sick of giving in. If there's anything, Columbus Day, if you want to get rid of Columbus Day because you could be like, he didn't find America, great. I don't think I think actually it's even worse to make Indigenous Day become American Day, because guess what? If we didn't beat the shit out of the Indigenous at one point or another, none of the empathetic lefties would even be here. I wouldn't be here. No, it would be a very different world. We'd be here in different form. I don't know what it would be. So
but I'm going to push back on the superhero thing. It's the same thing. It's the same ideology. It absolutely is.
I understand what you're saying.
For this. The same people that want a gay Superman are the same people that push to have not celebrate Columbus Day. It's the same woke crowd that wants to cancel everything.
So, but this is where I also I understand what he's saying, but here's to add to it. If it's Indigenous Peoples Day, what is an Indigenous person? Native Americans, right? They have an entire month, and it's the month of November.
No, man, you can't say that, because then people are like, Thanksgiving. Why are we celebrating Thanksgiving? Because we're really celebrating slaughtering the Native Americans and taking over their country. So we shouldn't be celebrating that.
Well, they already are starting it, because they start talking about how horrible a history is for Thanksgiving. And I'm like, well, look at the next day. Look at Black Friday. You're really thankful for what's going on in life.
I think it's amazing what we've done. I think it's amazing what we've done to rid the history. We have made Native Americans out to be all these perfect, peaceful, like Buddhist creatures, which they were just factually not. I think that's the biggest issue. I see Dave's point in drawing the conclusion of the same people feel that same way. I don't necessarily think the metaphor matches up, but I get that the argument comes from the same people. I just think speaking of that, we've got the Velma has come out as a lesbian in the next installment of Scooby-Doo. And and this is where I'm going to clap back on the conservatives. We all knew she was a lesbian forever. Like, everybody knew Velma was a lesbian. Who cares?
Exactly.
And I think that this is bait. I honestly feel like the whole Velma thing, now that you brought up superheroes, I think Velma being gay is bait to make conservatives look over the top about these kind of issues. Now, if there's
ever Velma bait,
somebody needs to get slapped in the face.
Don't take the Velma bait. Don't take the Little Mermaid bait. So let that go.
Someone just needs to watch, smoke a little bit of that green stuff and watch Scooby-Doo again, and they'll realize it.
It's the same thing. Like, everyone wants a female James Bond. It's like, well, no, James Bond is a male. Period. If you want an MI6 officer and a movie around it, then create a new character that's a female, spy. Like, why do you have to reinvent something that's already? It's just like, it's horrible. I hate it.
They tried it. It didn't work. It was Charlie's Angels.
Jeanette Blonde.
Anyway.
Okay. All right. So Columbus Day. Great. But happy Columbus Day. We all got off of nothing for it today. Do you know it's Canadian Thanksgiving? The same matches up. Anyways. Let's go into PayPal real quick. So let's see. There's a whole bunch of stuff on it. Anybody want to lead the story on PayPal and what they're doing?
I just saw a statement that said that's PayPal put out that said the whole thing was put out in error. It never should have made it into the laws. It was a mistake, and they apologize for any confusion it created.
Oh my God.
If anybody believes that statement,
Yeah.
It's a multi-billion-dollar company with lawyers
right?
up the wazoo. Like this wasn't not like they don't make accidents like that. Like this was a deliberate policy that they actually thought was a good idea that was going to be helpful. No one just like clicks publish by mistake with something like that in it unless it was planned, orchestrated, and debated.
And signed off on, yeah.
Exactly.
Well, and don't forget, PayPal has a history of this ever since they went super woke. They canceled accounts and all kinds of things. So I'm not surprised, and that's where this backpedaling of them trying to say, "Oh, that was not supposed to." Well, why was this a topic in the first place? Regardless, like that was a topic that came up, and your company is now backpedaling because it got leaked out. No. And PayPal also took a huge hit financially because of this news, and it is amazing. It's finally people are coming back.
6 billion. Now the thing that, and they've lost a lot of users, but again, people talk a lot. I honestly want to leave PayPal. I've wanted to leave PayPal for a long time. I don't use them for a ton. It's not as easy to just, say, hey, just up and leave them if that's where a lot of your stuff is through. But you should make the time to do that. The thing is, I've talked about PayPal's issues for a long time. They've always had some of the worst user agreements on the planet. They can hold your money for no reason. So it was put up. There's these people. Where is it? I'm looking at the comments. So barrel racing, for example, you put on races just like any other rodeo type activity. They've held people's money. There's one specific example. Jim and Stacy Warner. PayPal froze $52,000 in January of something called the Kinder Cup. It's a big race that they put on. Fortunately, they had enough money to pay the contestants. They've held it, and they've still been fighting for it since January. This has got nothing to do with misinformation or COVID. They just have the ability of going in and messing with people's money. That's not just for them. There's another person that commented they've had 50,000 froze for six months. I've told people the more money you make, the less idea PayPal should be, because PayPal will hold things for you to, even if you've made it perfectly free and fair. That one they said was gambling, even though it was a contest. It's legal. They will find a way to say, why do you need to pull out all this money all at once? And they have held that for people for over 10 years. And they've continued to be in business with people having these massive cash flow complaints. PayPal has put people out of business because of them holding assets and create massive cash flow in small businesses. PayPal sucks.
So Anthony, Tabitha Springer and Audie Chambers are wondering what happened with PayPal. So PayPal tried to change their policy where they would basically they said fine you $2,500, take $2,500 out of your account if you were engaged in misinformation.
Each time. Each offense,
$2,500. They would just take it.
Yep. And what happens if you don't have it? If it's not in your PayPal account, since it is connected to your bank, they would actually request the money from your bank.
Right.
The ability for them to do that is massively terrifying, to say the least.
Right. So basically, they were trying to do a CCP style social credit system, and they got busted for it.
And it was anything from what they deemed as misinformation,
correct,
to they had a gender line in there, which again, all this stuff. How is it that they're pretending they didn't mean to put it in there when it had all these very specific levels of what they deemed as hate speech or misinformation? Pretty ridiculous.
Look, the White House press secretary is engaged in misinformation every single day at the podium. Like it's they want to have the Ministry of Truth, right? Like they want to have that whole White House team that they deems what's misinformation and what's not. Meanwhile, we were told for 3 years about Russian collusion. We were told the Hunter Biden laptop was, Russian disinformation. We had 50 high-level intelligence officers sign off on the fact that it was Russian disinformation, when them saying it was the true misinformation, and it was all accurate. Like we are constantly lied to by our government, and I don't think it's ever been more prevalent than the last 4 years.
I don't think it's just this administration that lies to the people, by the way. I think it's just standard procedure.
Well, maybe it's just louder because of the
Right.
social media tools.
These lies are just more freaking
Yeah.
ridiculous and more dangerous.
Yeah. No, 100%. So that's what's going on with PayPal. The last part of this, do you have any suggestions on how to just, I mean, do you guys use PayPal at all? I still use it. I don't know.
Personally, no.
Yeah, I've had it for years.
Here's the other problem. Isn't Venmo owned by PayPal?
Yes.
Yes.
So does that mean everybody's just going to get rid of Venmo? I mean, it's a tough slope to play.
Yeah. Well, Barb and I had this conversation a couple days ago. Like this is literally what it's happening right before our eyes, where you're having, another economy being created, right? So you have the cancel culture, you have companies like PayPal, you have YouTube and Google, right? And so when they push back and they start limiting free speech and censoring people and all that, the alternative to that is to create a parallel economy. And I think that's the only answer right now. So you got to, and I think we see it with Rumble, and now there's I just shared with Barb the other day, there's a financial institution that's pro-America, American values. Like you're going to see a lot more of that. And I think it's good because at the end of the day, capitalism is to me, the best alternative. And in capitalism, you have competition. And when you have competition, no one gets so much accumulated power like we've seen with some of these bigger corporations over the last 5 years, where, Time Warner, buys Disney and all this other stuff that's happening. So competition is good. When you have a parallel economy, I don't care if it's left versus right. I think it's a good thing, and it brings people back to center.
Candace Owens was just promoting something.
That's what I was talking about. Yep.
Yeah, I'm trying. It was $2,500. Glorify. There it is. Nikki on the spot. Yeah, Glorify app. That's the new one, and it's got credit cards and all this stuff.
We're going to go after them as a sponsor for the summit.
Yeah, I would love that, and I think that they are. And it's run by a billionaire. It's going to take money in order to start doing this. The big money has to start stepping up. Those conservatives with big money have to start stepping up. Yes, per offense, Audie. Again, they're saying that they're not going to do that, and that was actually a mistype, a really, really interesting typo. As you guys can see on the bottom of the screen, if you like the merch, Casey's wearing the recession shirt right now. Let's see, the Awake Not Woke recession shirt. We also have Woke. We've got Fight Against Tyranny, and of course our Awake Not Woke hats. Please go to that store, awakenotwokestore.com. Use Awake for 15% off. Again, hopefully in the next couple months, it'll all be under the Great American Syndicate window. But we got hoodies and stuff on there as it's starting to get cold. Make sure you check that out. So go to awakenotwokestore.com. Check that out and use Awake for about 15% off. All right. Let's go. We'll save Florida Surgeon General for last. You want to do Eric Adams? You guys are in New York. I got a fun little video. I'm gonna share. What's that? What was that symbol?
I got fruit flies swirling around my wine.
You probably need to learn how to shower better. So this is from the Philly conservative, David Winkler. He always makes some really good compilations. So this is actually a pretty funny one.
This crisis is not of our own making, but one that will affect everyone in this city. We expect to spend at least $1 billion by the end of the fiscal year on this crisis. New Yorkers are angry. I am angry too.
Gonna cry?
We have not asked for this.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
This is unsustainable. As I have said before, we need help, and we need it now.
Come, let me help you.
My God.
I thought it was clever. I thought it was good stuff.
That was hilarious.
Dave Winkler must have so much free time because this is all he does. Philly conservative. He actually wants to be on the show. We'll throw him up as a guest one time. He's funny as hell.
Yeah, we'll have Henry Winkler on at the same time.
So you guys are in New York. This is $1 billion you're spending. Does anybody have the current numbers on how many migrants has been bused to New York City, the sanctuary city that says
17,000, I think.
17,000 and change, and just 7,000, I think, since August. And so, I mean, you have millions coming over the border, and he's upset about 17,000. And he put out, he's a sanctuary state. I mean, New York, there's just so much about New York. Please win Lee Zeldin. Please vote for Lee Zeldin. Like, let's get New York back, please. But it's just another example of just the lunacy happening. He's up there, yeah, we're sanctuary city, but we didn't ask for this. Well, what is he? Does he think Texas asked for this? Does he think anybody asked for this? Like, why is he playing victim? New York is supposed to be strong and tough, and it is just not under these people.
In New York, is there voter ID, or is that a non-voter ID?
No.
So that's the super interesting part is this is kind of what he wanted. Like they want these votes. We know that they do.
If these people show up and vote for the next election for the governor of New York State, that's going to be just a disaster for New York.
DeSantis and Governor Abbott sent them, to be clear. So tell me, while we're on the subject, tell me about this Lee Zeldin shooting thing. So I don't know what happened.
There was a shooting outside his home. Lee Zeldin and his wife were at an event. They were headed back, and one of his daughters called in a panic. They're teenage daughters, and they called in a panic while the other daughter was on the phone with 911 because there had been a shooting right outside of their home. And ultimately, two of the people who were shot were literally, one was in the bushes outside the Zeldin's home, the other was under their porch. There was a bullet found like 30 feet from where his daughters were doing their homework. Like it literally, and he said it literally came, the violence, the crime in New York literally came to my front door today, So like, I don't know that you would find somebody else who cares as much about, he's always cared about New York and restoring it. Like I met him over 10 years ago and he was talking about doing that, and I followed him and tracked him since then, and he's just done things. I just think New Yorkers would be absolutely like suicidal to vote for anybody
Is there any chance, before you go, Dave, is there any chance that New York City is going to elect a Republican mayor?
I think we might.
Governor, I mean.
Or governor. Yeah. Oh, he's running for governor. Okay.
Yeah.
He's not. Yeah. So he's going to be. Never mind. All right, that makes way more sense. All right. Okay.
Yeah. Well, we had Pataki. He was a Republican.
That was a long
Governor
time.
Pataki. Yeah. And
Giuliani.
This isn't the first time that Zeldin had his life. Like he almost was stabbed. Like remember, like a month ago, at a campaign. So it's crazy what he's up against here. It's nuts. But that's crime. It's like it's at such a level. It's sickening. Back to like an 80s and 90s level.
Oh yeah. And I forgot. So Adams is the mayor. So the thing about Adams is it's interesting. He doesn't even have a lot of the love from the New York BLM community. Hawk Newsom can't stand him because he thinks he doesn't do enough to protect Black people against police, which is interesting to see.
Dude, I don't want to pick at someone how they dress, but he's like a show me mayor. Like he's just like, he's all about like his duds, and he's like, New York's a brand, Kansas doesn't have a brand. I don't know if you remember that video from like 2 weeks ago where he basically just threw Kansas under the bus because they weren't New York City. And he's got this suit with his cufflinks and all this other like, dude, like roll up your sleeves. Like he was a police officer. Like the biggest problem with New York City right now is crime and illegal immigration. Like 17,000 people over the last 30 days. Mm-hmm. The town of Del Rio in Texas has 5,000 illegals a day crossing into that. Imagine what that town is like, what they're suffering with. And he's complaining about 17,000. Like, give me a break, dude.
Yeah, it's insane. And again, it is a sanctuary city that he said he'd be welcoming them. And we we have such a massive influx in Texas and we're handling it without real true federal help. And we're getting millions down here. 2 million have been caught. Like that's how the fact that the policies that they stand for, and that is, they are the ones welcoming. It's policies that their party stands for, has allowed this to happen at our southern border. And now when it comes to their doorstep, the least they, instead of doubling down and saying, no, we got to spend, this is an emergency and this is bullshit that they're sending people. Maybe this would be the time to go, we might have misunderstood how big of a deal it is at the border to make this happen. But instead, not a single politician has been willing to speak like an actual adult and admit their mistake.
The one thing he did say that's accurate is that this is not sustainable. Like that's the one true statement he made.
Yeah,
He
and last week
he doesn't give a shit about Texas. Sorry, Dave.
at least he's saying something. Last week he basically said the left is doing nothing and the right is doing the wrong thing, right? So at least he's saying like he's acknowledging that there's a problem and the people who are in charge right now aren't doing anything about it. Like he's at least acknowledged that.
True. Casey, you got anything else?
Well, with Eric, there's so many things. Like when he's just newly elected, right? He just barely took over, and so with that, when his whole thing during the election last year, he was, he's got swagger, and then all this year, ever since taking his seat, he's been criticized. Like, hey, what are you doing? And so now he has this at his doorstep that he needs to address. He has no power to address this. And that's where I was going to get into a little bit of what William's talking about. Why don't the individual states secure their own border? That is why you're part of the United States of America. The federal government should be taking care of the border's exterior. Then they handle issues and they intervene when it becomes two states that have an issue. That's when the federal government comes into play. Each individual state should be, in my opinion, and this is where I'm going to probably be an outlier in this group, is Texas shouldn't be sending these to New York. Either should be Florida. They should be deporting them all. And because all you're doing is you are busing them up there, and you are going to guarantee that Kathy Hochul, or however you say your freaking stupid name, is going to be reelected because there is no voter ID. And so you are contributing to the problem by giving votes to the Democrats in these cities, and you're going to drown out the people that want to make the change in their community.
Right, but I believe unilaterally, the governors of Florida and even Texas can't deport.
No, they can. Abbott signed an executive order that he will use the National Guard to deport people. He signed that in July. And he never really utilized it.
So I talked to a border agent that said the same thing. He said, and I talked to him in July. He said, we just finally got the right to go back to deporting. Because before that, it was all catch and release and high five, have a great day. So yeah, Texas is, but it is not easy. It's not like Governor Abbott's. I don't think it was an executive order. I think he had to get.
It was an executive order.
It was an executive order. All right. Well, I thought he had to get multiple people behind him in the.
Yeah, well, then he should be deporting them too, instead of sending them up here, like you said, because that is the greatest threat. I think if it was a fair election, if the only people who voted were legal citizens, I think we could flip New York.
Yeah, but I mean, I understand your point, Casey, but there also is the point where you have to do these things to raise awareness and get the conversation going, and it's actually done that. It's not like we're sending these people to to horrible places. Like, they have to agree to go, for one. They're sending them to sanctuary, states, too. And three, if the Biden administration is literally doing nothing and even refuses to admit that there's a crisis, like something has to be done to raise the conversation. So
Sure.
it's definitely a gray area, and I'm not like all for it because it's human beings at the end of the day. But something has to be done.
So,
Right.
so it is all theater to a point, but I think without theater, people won't actually understand on a federal level what's going on. So that's why I think it was incredibly important for them to do it. Now, to Casey's point, I think it would have been nice for them to possibly do it in late November or mid-November after the election. And I see your point on how that, I mean, it could be that close of a vote. And if they're getting half of the illegal voters to vote, I think it is dangerous, and it is dangerous for the whole state of New York. So that's unfortunate. But there is a point to theater, William. If without theater, nothing gets done. As you can see, There was massive shifts that were made after the theater that has been the pandemic, the theater that has been the BLM riots. And as much as I disagree with the way that they went about them, they managed to get shit done that shouldn't have been done. And that's what the false narrative. So
Is that the way it should be, though?
What?
Or is that the way it should be? For us to take action in our communities and change things, it takes theater. It should actually be, or your elected representatives listen to the people and actually represent them. But that's what's not happening in politics right now.
Correct.
With our current state of media, I don't think that's possible. With our current state of media, so you have to right now. The conservatives and the Republicans have been too silent, and they're not fighting fire with fire. It's time to fight fire with fire. So that's why I got a case of the fuck.
Ooh, careful. Those are dangerous words, Anthony. You're inciting violence.
Inciting, yes. Okay.
And you were already at the insurrection. Now you're inciting violence. Dave Brown, maybe we should disassociate with Anthony.
Oh, where'd she go? What happened to Barb? She's the new Kevin. I'm going to do that every week to her at one
Stop
point.
calling me that. You can boot me out, but give me another name.
Yeah, and you know the thing, I think why like Abbott and DeSantis, like even though it is theater, like we're in such a weird spot where not even the mainstream media, like most of America doesn't even actually know what's actually really happening at the border. Like they really have no idea. Almost 2 million illegal crossings since Biden has been in office. And they said that the getaways could be as high as 1 million. So, and then you figure in the fentanyl that's coming across this border at record numbers, where it's like a bottle filled up with fentanyl could kill like the entire 150,000 people or 150 million people in this country. Like it is a crisis, and the administration and the mainstream media are ignoring it. So how do you bring attention to it if the people are ignoring it that are supposed to be the truth sayers and informing, the public, the general public, about what's going on?
Well, if it's only 2 million, then they are about 8 million short to be prepared for 2024, because that's how many votes Joe Biden needs to make up for how he won in 2020.
Yep. I see where you went there. All right, let's go ahead and throw this up. So speaking of the insurrection that Barb so eloquently said that I'm a terrorist on the show. The douche nozzle himself, Captain Fuckstick, has written a book. If anybody has been paying attention at all to any of the J6 stuff, well before the commission came out, this is Michael Fanone. See if I could zoom in on this douchebag's picture so you can remember him, who he was. He's the one with the tattoo on his neck. Anyways, he just came out with the book, Hold the Line, The Insurrection of One Cop's Battle for American Soul, which, by the way, $28 for a hardcover. That is quite pricey. Even $14 on Kindle. He also just got picked up, I think, yesterday or the day before. He'll be starting as the police analyst for CNN at the end of this year, beginning of January. I read a couple articles to learn, because all I want to know about this guy is, can anybody confirm him, like when he was a cop? Does anybody have any experience they've shared? And with Google and with DuckDuckGo, I found nothing. There is no information except for the fact he did leave his job at the police department. He said he left because they were harassing him every day, and he felt as though he was being abused. But there's one part to this, and then we'll start talking about it. This is how the book synopsis. Ready for this? Obviously, he is pandering to the left drastically. Fanone is ready to tell the full story of that fateful day, along with exploring the country's most critical issues, as someone who has had firsthand experience with many of them. A self-described redneck who voted for Trump in 2016. I would love to see the receipt on that, by the way. Fanone's closest friend was an informant, a black transgender HIV positive woman, the way to check off every fucking box, who has helped him mature and rethink his methods as a police officer. With his unique insight as an undercover detective and intense desire to do the right thing no matter the cost, Fanone provides a nuanced look at everything from policing to race politics in a way that is accessible across party lines. This guy is an absolute pandering ass fat. Fuck. I don't even know how to, like, this guy, when I've watched him cry on testimony, drives me absolutely nuts. There's videos of him in the crowd. He talks about getting beaten over the head with a Blue Lives Matter flag when there's a photo of him like crying in the middle of a crowd. I'm sorry. It was a tough day for the police officers. This was nothing compared to the riots of 2020, and you cried like a little bitch. I'm sorry. I'm going to say it. I'm going to be the one to say it. It was unfortunate that that happened, but Jesus, crikey. That's my little rant on him. To me, he is one of the worst in this whole insurrection bullcrap because he has perpetrated this massive lie. Anybody want to go on this one?
I think he's just absolutely ridiculous. And the big part that I believe is happening is they are utilizing him for media. And they have been since the day after January 6th, because they have video evidence of people hitting him and they want to utilize it and he wants to talk. That's the whole thing.
Well, look, it is wrong that anybody beat him, right? Like that should never happen. That should just never happen. Even if he is kind of a douche, right? Like he should not be beaten, especially he's in uniform, he's showing up. Like that just shouldn't happen. So we're let's just clear that out right here. On the other hand, for him to take that and then use that to play into, like we were just talking about, the theater going on, because all this January 6th crap is fucking theater. And I am so sick of it. I am so sick. I am outraged at how Pelosi and Schumer and all these other assholes have not only wasted millions of dollars of our taxpayer money to play into this, but have wasted our time and resources and contributed to the violence and division in this country by using this to impeach a guy who wasn't even president anymore after they were not held accountable for impeaching him on false evidence the first time around. Like it just shows there is literally nothing they can do and not get away with. They can do whatever they want because of where they are and who they are. And we are going to pay. They're all pissed about, Mexico, or we're going to build a wall and Mexico is going to pay for it. Well, it's like fucking Democrats can do whatever they want. And all of us are going to pay for it. Like we're the ones paying for it, literally and figuratively. Every single day of our lives, we are funding all their fucking bullshit. And I am just done with it. And that's my end of the session, 3/4 of a glass of wine. Rants. Thank you for not believing me, Anthony.
Fanone served 20 years as a law enforcement officer. Respect, right? Respect. But I don't see all the other police officers and security guards at the Capitol that day writing fucking books, right? I don't see 20 other officers, 50 other officers.
By the way, he didn't write the book. It was written for him.
But it doesn't matter. On CNN, giving his 2 cents. Where are all these other people, right? He's an opportunist. That's all this is. I don't care who he voted for. I don't care if he voted for Trump. He saw an angle here to capitalize, to get some notoriety, to make some bank by having a book out there. And that's all this is. And so he's worried more about enriching himself than actually telling the truth. And maybe he felt, at the time, I wasn't like, he was in the thick of things. He was getting beaten. And when you're in those certain situations, like that's, you only know what you experienced, right? But at the same time, I think he's trying to capitalize and being very opportunistic with what's happening right now. And so it's a little disingenuous, I think, at the same time.
I think this shows to me, and I know that you get the money that you want, but this to me shows how disingenuous his testimony was. There was an end game to it. Do you know how many books there would be right now if every police officer that had to deal with the BLM riots of 2020 that had as bad of an experience as him? Right. There'd be hundreds, if not thousands of books. Meanwhile, you've got this guy, he suffered a TBI. Again, very possible. But the articles written about it, it's just he said he was tased. First off, by the way, and I'm changing the subject, you brought up Nancy Pelosi. I want to show this real quick. If you're wondering, there's on the cover that is Nancy Pelosi saying this timely book offers a stark message for the uncertain moment, making crystal clear the urgency and importance of defending our glorious democracy. Nancy Pelosi, of course, made a comment on the book that makes it even more ridiculous. But there's photos.
I didn't even know that when I went off on my rant. So there you go. Fuck you, Nancy Pelosi. God, I can't stand her. Can't stand her. Why does Chad Prather want to motorboat her so badly? I don't know. I cannot stand her.
I gotta show that.
That is news to me, and wow, that's disturbing.
does have some big jalopies. It's disgusting, but she's got some big jalopies. I want to share my screen again.
In
Man,
the words of Jeff Foxworthy, I think that's like putting a chandelier in a haunted house.
Correct. All right, here is, and honestly, again, nobody should be getting beaten, but as a tattooed up alpha male cop, I'm not going to lie, in a bar, I've taken worse hits, like whatever, but I'm just going to show this. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. You're an idiot. Let's do it again.
We have 6 minutes, Anthony.
Shut your mouth.
9 minutes.
So here he is. I mean, not good, but well, look at him pull his mask off and start to cry. He was not getting beaten there. He was part of a melee in a big crowd. I mean, that's it. I'm sorry.
So look, for every video you show like that, there's an opposing video that shows people who were there protesting peacefully, right, about election integrity, showing them pulling rioters and people who are being violent, pulling them off of people or stopping them from breaking into the Capitol. For every one of those, there's another video that shows the people who were there doing good things, right? That's what we've seen and heard over the last freaking 2 years is not the entire story. The entire story, the real truth is most people there, 95% were there peacefully. Barb was there lovingly, patriotically, right? But it only takes a handful of people to ruin it for everybody else, right? And that could be instigated, that could be pushed, that could be, the fire could be lit, and off you go. But most of the people that were there peacefully, and a lot of the people that were there peacefully were trying to stop this stuff from happening. But you can't stop everybody. But they don't want to show or talk about the other side. They want to blanket everybody under one umbrella that we're all crazy, extremists, insurrectionists, seditionists, you name it, whatever name under the sun you want to call us, that's what we are. And it's just not the truth.
And lastly on this topic, just looking at the articles now that he's written this book they're talking about, and they continue to use verbiage like he worked on the day where 5 people died at part of the riots, including a police officer, which has been factually, in the words of the Democrats, debunked. He died 3 days later of a stroke, completely unrelated to what happened at the Capitol. And then the 4 that they're ignoring, one was an old man heart attack that there was a flashbang that sent him. One woman was trampled after she was beaten by a police officer. Yes, beaten by a police officer, and then was trampled and killed. One was shot unarmed by a Capitol police officer that never had to face trial, might I add. And one other one, I'm not sure of how that happened.
Yeah, well, she was smashing a window, wasn't she, in the Capitol?
The window was already open. It was already broken, but she was yelling through. I don't condone what she was doing, but there was no need to shoot that person.
I agreed. I agree on that point. But
so,
yeah.
Let's see. All right. So here we got, we don't need to talk about Kanye. We'll skip that. Let's end with the Florida Surgeon General. Sorry, I get so heated about the whole January 6th thing because it's like the Democrats pretended as though all of 2020 summer did not happen. And it's just bullshit.
Oh, you mean the fiery yet peaceful protest?
Fiery yet peaceful.
It was the summer of love. What are you talking about?
Love, exactly.
We have 2 minutes to go through.
No, we've got 6 minutes, you dick, and we can go a minute or 2 over.
Did you just call me a dick?
Yes. Captain Nazi. We have a 2 or 3 minute buffer where this is
not if you keep talking.
Very
exactly
offensive, Anthony Russo.
Even Dave was like, "Oh shit, he just called her dick." All right, where do I see now? You've thrown me off.
Call me a dick.
Here we go, and I know that's probably really small, so I'll just go ahead and give it a quick read. This is from the State Surgeon General, Dr. Joseph A. Ladapo, issuing a new mRNA COVID-19 vaccination guidance. Today, the Surgeon General, you know who he is, Ladapo, announced new guidance regarding mRNA vaccines. This is new guidance. The Florida Department of Health conducted analysis through self-controlled case series, which is a technique originally developed to evaluate vaccination safety. The analysis found that there is an 84% increase in the relative incidence of cardiac-related death among 18 to 39-year-olds within the 28 days following mRNA vaccination. This means only the first 28 days, not including after. With a high level of global immunity to C19, the benefit of vaccination is likely to outweigh this abnormally high risk of cardiac-related death among men in this age group. Non-mRNA vaccines were not found to have these increased risks, which I find very funny that was where we found the risks in the very beginning, pulling those off the shelf, causing the mRNA to be the only thing used. I find that interesting. Studying the safety and efficacy of medications, including vaccinations, is an important component of public health, said Surgeon General Joseph Ladapo. Far less attention has been paid to safety and concerns of many individuals have been dismissed. These are important feelings that should be communicated to Floridians. So with that said, he has decided to say that they are not recommended for those 18 to 39 years old. Boom. Go ahead, Speed Talker Barb.
Speed Talker Barb. I'll just make it quick. I mean, props to the Florida Surgeon General, props to Florida in particular for leading the way in virtually everything they do. And I mean, I saw that Twitter took down his post and then put it back, and he's now claiming that Twitter violated his human rights by doing that. But then they restored it. So, I just think it's a good thing. Among other things, it just shows that it just takes a core group of people to push back and encourage others to do the same. I'm personally worried about this as a mother of 4 kids who meet that demographic, who got that vaccine. This scared the shit out of me when they were doing it. And it continues to concern me now. So, I'm glad that this is coming out. And I know people are pushing back and saying, well, his only research is a study that Florida did. And that's not really study. It's not peer reviewed, blah, 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 blah. But, you could do anything, and they
look
would
at the DOD, look at the Department of Defense, look at all statistics.
Right.
This goes across the board. He did it because it's being found in other places.
Right.
And Florida leads the nation in COVID deaths this month. That is correct. It's also the oldest state in the country, but that's just a different point.
Is it?
Plus, there are people that die with COVID. There are people that are dying while they test positive for COVID, right? So this is an aging population by and large, right? It has a large aging population, and they're not dying from COVID; they're dying with COVID. So there's a big distinction.
Yep. And by the way, we don't even know the amount of people that have been smaxinated out of that group, because a lot of them are elderly that are dying. But
yeah, and where also equally the most COVID deaths are happening? California, New York, where like 95% of the population is vaccinated. So you take that argument and shove it up your, what.
And they had a lot of deaths during the peak of the pandemic, more than other states. Why? Because the only place people could travel to and actually have some freedom was Florida. So they had the most amount of travel at that time, and they still handled it well.
Look, here's a news flash for all the ignorant people that live under a rock, right? You can't watch a TV show without a drug commercial coming across the screen. And what happens at the end of the drug commercial? What do they tell you?
The side effects.
The side effects.
Potential
Anal
death.
bleeding, risk of death, like blood coming from your eyes, like whatever it is. There's a whole list of them. You have to be an ignorant fool to believe that an untested mRNA vaccine doesn't have any side effects. Right? It had side effects from day one, and they knew what the side effects were. They were learning about it, but they still wanted to suppress it because they wanted more and more people to get vaccinated. Now we're actually seeing the truth. Oh, shit. You know what? It has side effects, and people are like, oh, my God, I can't believe it. What do you mean you can't believe it? Of course it does. It's a drug. It's a drug.
And everybody
Sweden banned vaccines for people under 54. Right. They didn't do that just because they decided. I mean, did it because they did studies. They did research. Like, there's side effects, period.
And anecdotally, is nobody paying attention to the cancer levels in this country? I mean, there are doctors that are just not willing to speak to anybody but their friends. I've had conversations with many of them saying anything that you had lying dormant in your body, the mRNA spike proteins are having an effect on. And I'll leave it at that. But I talked to a woman that is on paper smaxinated, not going to give any details, but her and many other people, she doesn't have fake paper. It's real because it was shot into a trash can because the doctor said, I can't speak up, but I'm going to tell you, if you don't want to get this, I don't believe in it. That happened more than people realize. Thank God there were some doctors that were at least willing to do that. They didn't want to lose their medical license. They didn't speak up. So they did that instead. That's how much the information on this has been suppressed. And I have to go back to one other thing said by William Light. let's not compare BLM to January 6th. I completely agree. January 6th was a complete cakewalk compared to the bullshit that was fed to us by Black Lives Matter, which is a completely corrupt, fraudulent organization that led riots all over the country, funded by people that you've probably never even fucking heard of, and destroyed cities, destroyed businesses, and continue to loot and pillage cities to a place where we cannot rebound from. Instead, we're busy watching the January 6th Commission on TV. So in terms of that, I agree with you. You can't compare the two. One does not even come close.
One, is it still on TV? And two, who's actually watching it?
It got postponed for a week, but no, it's supposed to come back to TV like 2 weeks ago. They were the January 6th bullshit. Anyways, we're about to wrap up. Anything else left on this on the jibbity jab situation and Florida Surgeon General speaking some truth? Absolutely, I'm angry, William. 100%.
My only thing is like this. It's not. COVID's never going away. Just like the flu is never going away. It's here to stay, right? And I was watching the Georgia Bulldog game the other day with my family, and one of the big players, whatever, couldn't play because he had COVID, right? Which is fine, which is okay. We don't need to make a big deal out of it. Like if he had the flu, they would have said he's out with the flu, right? You hear that all the time. Like it's just going to be part of the lingo that we have to deal with. Like, he's out with COVID. He's out with the flu. He's got a bad stomach bug. Like it's not going away. It's here to stay. We have to learn to live with it. If you want to get a jab that has side effects, you might want to do your research, get the jab. It's no big deal, but we should know what the side effects are so we can make our own judgments and our own decisions.
And Dave, we also have to live with, just like, not being able to play with COVID, we got to live with the stories of a running back coach from Michigan also being carted off the field for having a seizure. And as the game,
right.
Yeah, I mean, we got to live with it. There's the side effects that we don't know where they're coming from, or you know what? I'm sure he just had a random seizure, and all these stories are just completely made up. Before we each do our last little closing bit, I didn't actually do any of our brands, so I'm just going to run through this super wicked fast since we're talking about Smaxcanations. TheDrArtistShow.com. I know a lot of you guys actually have started purchasing from there, so thank you guys. BFD at checkout for 10% off, and I think he's even got some products that have a 20% off right now already. You can use the BFD at checkout for 10. Go to TheDrArtistShow.com. In the comments after the show is over, on all the pages, I will add to the description the link on how to flush the jibbity jab from the system if you feel like you got it, and get your glutathione numbers back up. Lastly, bluntforce.mymonate.com. Tony Van Schoik, I'll be hanging out with her next week in Dallas. Bluntforcediscussion@gmail.com if you have some questions, but bluntforce.mymonate.com is where you want to order some of the products, hair care, skin care, all the good stuff. Please check that out. Trust me, the product's cruelty-free, vegan, and they are, whether or not it is a multi-level or network marketing company, I don't care. It's been the best shampoo, best skincare products I've ever used in my life, bar none. Swear to God, not kidding. With that said, I've already said awakenotwokestore.com for our gear. And am I leaving anything out? That's it. That's it on my end. Let's go ahead and start with Casey. Final words.
Voting is in 4 weeks. Vote in person. Don't use ballots. Don't use mail-in ballots. Go in person.
I like the new name. I'm going to go and name the new show because all my wild speculation over the last 2 years has become true. So I'm good. If you want to call it wild speculation, or you're just too dumb to actually research your own site. God, I feel like I'm getting angry right now, and I am. But you know what? I'll leave it there. Barb, go ahead.
That's because your phone is at gate E9.
Boom.
Yeah, I know. I see you, Anthony. I don't think William Light likes us.
No, he's just a troll. I've seen him on other shows too. He didn't like my show with Chad Jackson either.
No, that's it. But what Casey said, pay attention, get out there and vote. The Republican Party is not the end all to all of our problems, but it is definitely the push we need to start swinging this pendulum back now. And we can continue to course correct from there. From there, we can get the bad ones out and all that stuff, but it's got to start somewhere. So get your ass out there and vote, especially for those of us in New York. Hello, get out there and vote for Lee Zeldin, please.
Dave.
Well, look, I mean, the show is we share facts, we share truths, right? But we add our own opinion to it, right? And everyone is able to have their own opinion. That's the beauty of America. That's the beauty of this country, free speech, right? And if we just took the time to actually listen to each other's opinions a little bit more instead of swallowing all the garbanzo garbage that the media pushes down our throats every day, I think we'd be a little bit better off. Remember, love your neighbor. Like, if we all go out there in the world and we actually meet people and get around people, we realize that we're really not that different, right? But when you start getting on these social media platforms and you get you get kind of sucked into the media news cycle and headlines, things get manipulated and are not what they seem. And we just need to continue to research and seek the truth.
Agreed. Hold on, I gotta see what. I have a gut feeling that this is never mind. I'm not going to bring that up. Well said, Barb. Barb had a little jibbity joke in the background on that one on the private chat. I just want to show one thing as we head out of here, just because this is just talking about the insanity of the world we lived in. This is Michael Fanone after the riots. First off, it's very sad that it happened too. I've seen a lot of hospital rooms. This is not the typical setup, nor like this doesn't look right in any way, shape, or form. On top of it, why would somebody that has these issues be wearing a mask also incorrectly, if you say so? There's so many things wrong with this picture that perfectly displays everything wrong with the narrative that has been presented to us. And I encourage you, William, to just think outside the box. And I appreciate that you say some things make sense. Some of it is just logic based on reason. And that is kind of what the show is. And Dave said it perfectly. It's not perfect. We're not perfect. We're not always right. Although I've been really, really right for a long time. But there is things I'm wrong about, and I'm willing to admit that. But that's the key, is actually looking internally and realizing we're not perfect. I encourage you guys to share this episode. I thank you guys for joining. We should be back next Tuesday, regular Bat channel, regular Bat hour. And remember, at the end of the day, the truth will always set you free. Take it easy, guys. And button. And scene.